Okay, Laura.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I'm here with my good friend Alfred Lambremont Webre. We are live today. And this is so exciting because you have a new book coming out, which is incredible. And we do news evolution together. And it's really great to see you. Before I read more about you, I just want to just say, wow, this is really incredible. I look forward to reading this. My gosh. Another amazing contribution, Alfred. So this is going to be about in the future will the United States of America break up into many regions? Before we get into that, though, I want to just say a few words about Alfred Lambremont Webre and who Alfred Lambremont Webre is. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with him, and I'm just trying to find where I put that in my notes. I know we're live, so I mean, Alfred's written so many books, and he is what I would consider like the founder of exopolitics. And him and I go way back. We've done a lot of different shows together. He is the first person that interviewed me when I came out with my Mars recruitment story. So, Alfred, do you want to just say a few words about yourself? I want to read your bio, but I had it and it just disappeared, which is funny. Here we are live.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm basically a futurist, and that is how the story of this book got started. Because shortly after I started as a futurist at Stanford Research Institute in 1971, I was pulled aside by Willis Harman, who's the lead futurist at Stanford Research Institute, which then had the contract for a 50-year future study for the USA. And he said, Alfred, the United States is going to break apart into several regions in the future. And he was like making a leap to me at that time. And of course, our mutual colleague, Andy Bashago, in 1971 had seen a copy of my book, Exopolitics, which wouldn't be published until 2005. He had seen it in 1971 at the DARPA-CIA time travel headquarters, because they had time traveled it back to 1971, and he announced that publicly and told it. So DARPA-CIA had been time traveling my stuff, and so they leaked this future time travel pre-identification to me. And now here we're in 2023, which is, quite a few years after 1977, when I was given this leak. It's, so I've now decided to come out public because there is so much polarization in the US and many different factors that we can talk about. But I'm going to turn it over to you to describe what the book is about, and then I'd like to share some other stuff with you after that.
Yeah, so it's called In the Future, Will the United States of America Break Up into Many Regions? The first thing that comes to mind is some of the movies that we see that are sort of predictive programming about this. Hunger Games kind of comes to mind, but yes. So A Public Inquiry, Volume 1, June 2023 to June 2024. It's a new book series from futurist Alfred Lambremont Webre that publicly shares the proof, reality, and implications if ultimately manifesting of an apparent leak of classified top secret DARPA-CIA Project Pegasus quantum access time travel pre-identification information that in the future, the United States of America would break up into many regions. This leak was given to Alfred in January 1977 by Director Willis Harman when Alfred first joined the Center for the Study of Social Policy, the then Futurist unit at Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, California. At the time, SRI's Futurist unit had a contract with the Central Intelligence Agency to study alternative 50-year futures of the United States of America. As Alfred has revealed in his book, The Chronography, about 50 personnel of DARPA-CIA top secret Project Pegasus time travel unit had met him in 1971 at a non-disclosure location in New Jersey when Alfred was general counsel and assistant administrator of the New York City Environmental Protection Administration under Mayor John Lindsay and Administrator Jerome Kretschmer. I mean, this just goes on and on. So it's wild because the previous books, and then when I met you, that first initial book was all connected to this time travel stuff. So here we are with this portion of it. It's almost like it's a trilogy that all it connects to this particular time that is all transpiring now to be revealed. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. It's like we're time travel entangled, and I'm so happy that you're the first person. You, as Dwight Eisenhower's great-granddaughter, are the first person to interview me on this book, because what I'd like to do is share with you. I thought about Dwight Eisenhower's military-industrial complex speech, which is an enormously important speech that Dwight Eisenhower warned about the United States of America about its future was in danger because of the military-industrial complex. And I found a very moving 3-minute video about it that I'd like to share with you now, if that's okay. Let me just bring it up and just share screen with it. Here we go.
Farewell.
This speech did not get very much attention. When a new president is coming to power, as John Kennedy was, the spotlight was not on Dwight Eisenhower.
We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions.
There was a feeling at the time that this must have been written by some speechwriter who just sneaked into the speech.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
3 months ago, we got contacted by a family up in Minnesota saying that we have documents from Malcolm Moose. He was responsible in part for drafting the military-industrial complex speech.
These new papers give us written evidence that this was not just some caprice of Eisenhower's or something by some speechwriter.
You see the evolution of his speech from May 1959 to 1961.
And he wanted to give this speech for a long time, 2 years.
Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea.
There was one person in Dwight Eisenhower's life whom he really confided almost everything to, and that was his brother Milton.
There's one particular document where the speechwriters had already drafted their version of the speech, only to see Milton come along and totally revamp what had already been written.
When Milton Eisenhower was taking notes and writing things on the drafts of these speeches, the speechwriters knew that it wasn't Milton talking, it was Ike.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
He would see magazines with advertisements for some new warplane or some bomb, and he got so angry he'd take the magazine and throw it into the fireplace of the Oval Office, because he felt that defense spending should not be something that would be encouraged by companies who are seeking commercial gain.
We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
There is an interesting document. It shows that the farewell speech would be made to Congress. But yet, President Eisenhower decided, no, he was going to address the people.
Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
One test of how well a president speaks is how long the speech lives. Here we are 50 years later, we're still talking about this speech.
Now, on Friday noon, I am to become a private citizen. I am proud to do so. I look forward to it. Thank you, and good night.
So that was the military-industrial complex speech of your great-grandfather, President Dwight Eisenhower. I was privileged to speak to, I'm not sure what that is.
What?
I was privileged to speak to and meet with one of his cabinet members who, because I went to secondary school, Georgetown Prep, the same school that one of the presidential candidates in the 2024 election, RFK Jr., went to. And I met with one of the cabinet members of Dwight Eisenhower and had a great meeting. So I feel some personal connection with the Eisenhower administration. And that speech, it's amazing that coming out, his being a military person, he came out with that speech, and from the analysis in this forthcoming book, and I can talk more about the various factors that might lead to the breaking apart of America, but it's the war parties and the military-industrial complex that may break apart America. Did you ever know much about Milton, Dwight Eisenhower's brother, or anything? Has he come out much in your family's lore?
Yeah. My mom spent a lot of time with him. I wasn't able to spend a lot of time with him, but Michael Beschloss, who was the person talking about the speech, he was a regular at our home. He was a family friend. He was really close to my mom, so I grew up with him.
Right.
But yeah, Milton had a strong influence over the speech it was saying, but Eisenhower, the speech was authentic to what Eisenhower wanted to express, is what I'm getting from that.
Right. Well, there are many influences that could bring about the fulfillment of this leak from the secret DARPA time travel pre-identification program that I was given in 1977. I'm not saying that it will happen, but I'm saying, and this book is kind of a public inquiry. So I'm calling for a public inquiry into it. And our conversation today is sort of a first step into that public inquiry. And there are many different influences. One is the first one is what I call the chronogarchy, or the chronogarchy is an interdimensional hidden power structure monitoring the time space of Earth. is kind of the secret time travel government. And there are a lot of secret influences. And we can trace it even going back to the late 19th century novels by Ingersoll Lockwood, which are entitled 1900 or The Last President. And I can bring an example of that here to show you. This is just share screen. This is an example of the novel, The Last President by Ingersoll Lockwood. He is what we call sort of a chronography operative, and talking to U.S. chrononaut Andy Basiago, he says that the time travel apparatus that he encountered, for example, when they time traveled him back to the Gettysburg to listen to U.S. President Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, he went back there dressed in the clothes of that time period, but he had already been briefed that there was this particular store that he could go into, and that the store owner would be able to help him out, so that there are people that the chronography, or that the people who time travel others, they're people backwards and forwards in time who help out others. And so this particular author, Ingersoll Lockwood, who was a member of the New York Bar in the late 1900s and who wrote a book called The Last President. We look at The Last President, characters in his books. Let me just get it here at the right page. Characters in his book were called Trump, Baron Trump, Trump Castle. That it was set in the New York Hotel, which is on the actual current New York City Fifth Avenue and the site of Trump Tower. So it was set in the New York Hotel, which is actually in the current site of Trump Tower. And the narrator of the novel is named Don, and he's the master of all masters. And he's sort of a future version of Donald J. Trump. And in 1900, or The Last President, it's a fictional title chosen as a signifier and predictor of Donald J. Trump possible chronography mission, who might, as happens in the novel, terminate the original constitutional order in America by disassembling the constitutional order of President, Congress, and Supreme Court, which is what happened in that novel. If you follow me, in other words, there's this anomalous novel which was produced at the end of the 19th century, which has Baron Trump, Don Trump, which has sort of a Trump-like event. And that could be the chronography. Then we have social and political polarization and the color revolutions, how the dynamics of red versus blue versus purple states may accelerate the process of balkanization of the constitutional arrangements of states. such as the 2022 adoption by the Texas State Republican Party of a plank calling for the secession of Texas from the United States, and a recent poll showing that a plurality of Trump voters in Trump-leaning states favor secession from the United States. About 33% of Trump voters in so-called red states say they'd personally fare better if their state became an independent country. So there's that sort of background, and I sort of like to share that so that people can see exactly what we're talking about. Let me bring that in now and see if I can bring it in. Sharing. So here we have Trump voters favor secession in their states, and there's just a lot of things. And here's Hunter Biden. Now, here we have the curious synchronicity that just today, Hunter Biden pled guilty after 5 years of investigation, but at the same time, we have, let me just get the right thing here, and get this, we have in the current president, also there is evidence that he that the current president Joe Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Abadi, let me just stay with you. You just started to answer Senator Blackburn's question that not releasing the 1023 or talking about it as a matter of life and death, question of life and death, you said. Explain.
It is potentially a question of life and death
For whom?
With regard to the source of the information.
So, okay, so now we've confirmed that the document exists. That's progress because the FBI director initially denied that it exists. Why did he do that?
We have already and previously acknowledged the existence of the documents.
Yeah, after you first denied it. Now, when a member of this committee read it, right, the FBI director, let's just get the record straight. The FBI director initially said it doesn't exist. Then Senator Grassley said, I've read it. Then he said, oh, okay, well, gotcha. I guess it does exist. Now you're going back and forth with members of this committee, what's in it. Why don't you just release it? Is it classified?
The document is not classified.
Okay. Will you commit to releasing it?
Senator, we'll take that back and we will work with you in this committee.
How about just a yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States, has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee.
Has it been released to this committee?
We'll work with this committee within the parameters that are established to meet.
Will you release the
request.
document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
In some instances, Senator, and I know you know this, that is not sufficient to protect people. And that's what we strive.
5 words you pronounce wrong 2 years before your brain starts.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, well, I'm just showing the type of polarization that exists now between the two leading candidates on the GOP and on the Democratic side. On the one hand, you have credible evidence that is now coming out in public that the president of the United States has taken between $5 and $30 million in bribes, and that it's been hidden inside a Biden crime family multi-bank network that has gone to up to 9 Biden family members, and that's been hidden. And on the other side, you have, and the news just came out today, that let me just get this. Trump's federal trial in August was set by the judge. Trump's federal trial on his documents case was set 9 days before the first GOP debate in August. In other words, that there's a term called railroading, and from a legal point of view, if you examine everything, and I'm a judge on a tribunal of conscience, it appears to me that Trump is getting railroaded because it isn't emphasized in mainstream media, but the Department of Justice key actions could not have been started without an approval from the White House. And the issuance of the subpoena on the Mar-a-Lago for the documents was over initial very strong objections by the FBI because of the politicization. And now you have a major trial starting that's starting 9 days before the GOP debate, where the Democratic candidate, there's FBI documents that he's taken at least $5 million in bribes. I mean, which is being hidden and which the mainstream media is hiding. Right before this program, I watched a live interview between Fox News, a tape between a Fox interview by Bret Baier of Donald Trump, in which Donald Trump appeared to me, I mean, just watching it, he appeared to me, sort of kind of this overwhelmed Gemini, okay? I'm a Gemini, and I know that it's hard for Geminis to keep track of material details, and being pressed by the National Archives, okay, and then I watched the MSNBC views on that same and the CNN views on that same interview, and they were describing Trump as, oh, Trump just made these admissions and he's a terrible, extremely guilty man. In other words, the amount of projection and pre-guilt is enormous. So either they're following their masters. I mean, MSNBC is in Rockefeller Center, which we know is owned by the Rockefeller Standard Oil. There are only 6 companies that own these media. They're reflecting, say, about 50% of the population. And if you go to my chronography books, what appears to have happened in 2022 is that there's a split of the timelines between an organic Gaia-based timeline and an AI artificial timeline. So is the military complex sort of war party, MSNBC, CNN, mainstream media timeline, those following the AI timeline, those that see Trump the monster, right? Because that's their view of perception going down this timeline. And Trump, who I was looking at, I mean, he's not a perfect guy. He's a lot of peccadillos, but still, compare Trump with all of the other presidents. There were no wars during Trump. Trump had a peaceful relation with the main adversaries, with Russia under Putin, with China under Xi, with North Korea, and compare them now. We're at the edge of World War III and a nuclear war. And we both know what happened with Tiamat, which is now the asteroid belt, where we had a reptilian human nuclear war, and it's the asteroid belt. And that happened 700,000 years ago. And we know that from exopolitical research. So my point being is that as a soul, it seems that Trump is a very advanced soul because he was able to stop wars during his 4 years. And that it seems logical to me that that is the main impetus why he was ejected from office and why you have that media, mainstream media, the CNNs, which have attacked me. I was attacked personally by CNN and called an idiot by CNN, in one of the major where during the Piers Morgan show, when they ran a segment of me on showing that Barack Obama had been a CIA agent, and then they had Piers Morgan calling me an idiot, okay, on CNN. So I know that both CNN and MSNBC are controlled by the military-industrial complex that Ike, your great-grandfather, warned us about. So I'm trying to connect dots here to the disassembly of the United States. And
Gotcha.
finally, if we look at the presidential election, how perceived unequal justice and politically motivated persecutions of targeted U.S. presidential candidates leading up to and following the November 5th, 2024 presidential election may lead to social polarization and destabilization of the American population and manifestation of the DARPA-CIA time travel chronovisor pre-identification in 1977 that, quote, in the future, the United States of America will break up into many regions. So this is sort of where I'm coming from and the evidence that I'm showing.
And what does that look like? I mean, and where do we see, how there's always that one country or place where they do the practice rounds, or just, I mean, where is it, the 15-minute cities kind of thing? Is that where it begins?
Well, there right now, I think that the they're descending the world into a polarization, with the breakup of the U.S. being part of it, and the one person who was brought into the planet. I mean, if there was one thing that was positive about Trump, that the War Party cannot respond to, is that he brought peace for his 4 years, and that is a major point. And now what we have is a race toward World War III, with China, with Russia, Ukraine, and all of that is coming back down on the U.S., and with the internal implosion and disassembly of the U.S. and greater internal polarization and fragmentation into the blue states, the red states, the purple states, and greater and greater polarization, and the mainstream media accelerating that polarization with demonization. So anyway, and all of this with the splitting apart of the timelines is accelerating. So that's kind of my analysis. And the new book, in the future, will the United States of America break up into many regions? A public inquiry has been on Amazon. Just Google my name, Alfred Lambremont Webre, will take you right there. And so I think that this is going to be the main dialogue through and following the 2024 U.S. election. And you'll be finding more and more articles about it, media, because the right-wing corporate media is toward one polarity, and there are fewer and fewer media that are really looking at this from an objective viewpoint. And I'm so glad that you agreed to come on here, because I think Dwight Eisenhower, your great-great-grandfather, really articulated. Sorry?
Oh, one great.
Your great, yeah. Your great-grandfather really articulated about the military-industrial complex, and he nailed it, because it's the military-industrial complex that is leading this polarization and leading the negative dynamic toward the breakup of the United States, if it does happen. So that's my analysis.
Brilliant, Alfred. When you hear about martial law and just military forces showing up in different areas, and then this UFO crash in Las Vegas and some of these other kind of stories, do you feel there's a way that we can divert our attention as a humanity away from this being successful? I mean, the thing is, we have to have these kind of warnings to be able to envision what things could possibly be to maybe turn it around. What are your thoughts about that? I mean,
yeah.
that
So
are bringing more attention to kind of disclosure kind of topics, like, it just seems like we're at in a race against time, to avoid.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to have our conversation that we're having today and bringing this warning. I feel that this leak was made to me in 1977 to bring this public at this moment, so that this conversation could go public. And And so I'm going to start sharing our conversation. I'm going to start sharing, the book description of this book and these concepts, and start getting it into the wider conversation to see if we can break into this polarization. And I think that your work on the ascension energies, aren't the positive ascension energies working in favor of us who want to work against the sort of duality consciousness? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, people can't just fall for this or just consent or just go along with it and feel powerless to it. This is the ultimate test and challenge for humanity and humans in the face of this to, really stand up. I mean, parents and teachers and doctors and people that are working in these industries that are asking them to compromise themselves or go along with the indoctrination and, agree to this polarization and divide and conquer, strategy. It's up to each and every individual to win the war on consciousness within the self and not be played like this. And let's just hope that people are courageous enough and can hear these sort of warnings, because what would that look like? This vision, what would it look like? I mean, the Hunger Games kind of come to mind, like these districts, right? And then we see the transgenderism and the transhumanism and just a lot that has already kind of shown up in the movies that kind of look like the world that we're turning into. And that doesn't warn people because they just kind of laugh it off as fiction. But now, here's your book about America breaking up into many regions, not United States, even though there's borders and different governance. What is kind of the worst case scenario that we can give a harsh reality check in your description?
Well, the better case scenario is that people,
which is the one that we're going to strive for sure.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll just power that one and not go to the dark, but go for it.
Yeah. The better case, the better case scenario is that people can become aware that warnings have been given us and can internalize this and get away from the duality consciousness of us versus them, and get into unity consciousness and get into an ascended consciousness and get out of the judgment that the military industrial consciousness, the war parties, are trying to promote, and look around and see which parties and which individuals have been promoting peace and choose that. So that's my point. I think that's it. Now we're coming up to almost the 45-minute mark, which I think that this is a lot of information for people to understand. I'm so grateful for you, for who you are, and for the beingness that you carry and the messages that you carry, and for your agreement to participate in this. And thank you so much. Would you like to say any final words?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alfred. Alfred, I mean, you've been putting out, so much information and having the ability to see what the possibilities are gives everyone the opportunity to correct themselves and to check themselves and change the trajectory of their mindset and perception, because that's everything. That's why mind control is so rampant and social engineering, because once they just have a grip on that and your belief systems and the way you perceive reality, I mean, you pretty much create it for them. And we don't need to participate and co-create this kind of future. And we know that. And so the best case scenario is to do that inner work and to, strengthen ourselves in the face of these challenges and become more soul-centered and not be played, because this is definitely all meant to just divide us. And when or if, we see this America break up into, many regions, that there'll be a strong enough power within every individual to not allow this to take place. I wish I gave you just the introduction that I wanted to give you in just reading just the fullness of all that you've given to humanity, Alfred. I mean, I'm so grateful for just doing News Evolution with you. We do that with Patty Greer once a month. I think there's more to dive into about this book, and I'm always here to just promote and support everything that you do, and to continue to come together in our circle. And there's all that noise going on outside. But yeah, I mean, being a futurist and being a part of this time travel entanglement, having access to such a huge spectrum of, the conscious ability to perceive things beyond, the here and now, is what is really, so helpful to prepare people to make decisions with greater discernment and wisdom. I would hope that we had learned so much from all these dark cycles of history to see the same playbook being played by the same characters that are waging this war against us, to be fooled and tricked into an ideology that creates a false sense of security and confidence. And it's time for the facades to fall away and the truth to rise. And thank you for being such a force to make that happen, Alfred. I really appreciate you so much. And anytime you want to dig deeper into all of this, I'm right here, always.
Well, thank you so much. Namaste.
Okay. Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Okay, here we go.